understand that you've got more pricing power than you think you do.
Coffee's for closers only.
So we've established my proposal is sound in principle. Now we're just haggling over price.
Let's see how much we're going for on eBay.
I mean, it's the same as Dunkin' Donuts. Costs 15 times the price.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Jennings Executive Search. I had a great conversation with John Jennings about the skills needed in different pricing roles. He and I think a lot alike. If you're looking for a new pricing role, or if you're trying to hire just the right pricing person, I strongly suggest you reach out to Jennings Executive Search. They specialize in placing pricing people. Say that 3 times fast. Welcome to Impact Pricing, the podcast where we discuss pricing, value, and the attributable relationship between them. I'm Mark Stiving, and I run boot camps to help companies get paid more. Our guest today is Joshua Lowe. And here are 3 things you want to know about Joshua before we start. He is the Senior Director of Price Setting and Analytics at Genuine Parts Company. He's been there for 12 years. Oh my gosh. And he's the only person I know who went to U of Wyoming. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me. And there's not too many University of Wyoming grads out there, but happy to be a cowboy.
Yeah, exactly. So first question, how'd you get into pricing?
Yeah, so coming out of my MBA program, I joined Napa Auto Parts in a management trainee rotational program. So it was like an 18-month field-based training program where I saw Napa Auto Parts stores, Napa Auto Parts distribution centers, and spent stints in like the sales part of the organization. So we're like 2/3 independently owned through a type of ownership we call jobbers. But it's not a franchise model. It's a distribution partner model. So I go through the rotational program for 18 months. Coming out of that, there was an opportunity for somebody with some technical skills to take over a division pricing role. And it was directly related to helping our independent owners try to maximize their profit. The basic framework of that is if our jobbers are healthy from a P&L perspective, they'll buy more parts from us. So I took that role, 10 years ago. And that was my first foray into pricing. And I did that role for a number of years, went into supply chain management, and then found, hey, you know what? I'd rather be in a pricing role where I had more autonomy, I guess, to make decisions. I was more empowered in that role than I was in my supply chain role. So I went back into pricing and been there ever since.
Nice. So just so we all understand, first off, does Genuine Parts Company own Napa Auto Parts?
Yeah, we're a wholly owned subsidiary. So we're the largest subsidiary of Genuine Parts Company. So we're United Napa Auto Parts, United base, 6,000 stores nationwide.
Got it. And when you say the word jobber, I can interpret that to mean owner of an independent Napa Auto Parts store.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. And so I got to say, I think that would be a lot of fun to run a pricing division whose job is to help stores be more successful.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's why I've been with Napa this long. I get the question every once in a while, hey, why have you been there for that long? You've got an MBA, you've moved up through the organization. Why haven't you moved out and found opportunities? And it's always been helping the independent owner has driven me back. Because it keeps me here, I guess. It's just, I'm working for a large corporation. A lot of people in pricing roles work for large corporations. But at the end of the day, a lot of what I do is I try to find those like win-wins where it's beneficial for us, it's beneficial for them. Create a lot of great relationships over the years with independent owners. So it's a unique part of the business, and that's why I'm still here.
Yeah. And, I live the world of pricing. And I have to say that whenever I help a company, and I'm sure it's true for you as well, but whenever I help a company with their pricing, they're more successful. They're much happier that we got this done. And we're not cheating customers by, their customers. What we're really doing is just capturing more of the value that we're delivering to our customers. So
yeah, I look at it in an organization like ours where we have 800 plus thousand actively managed products. You're unlikely getting the full basket of goods from your your customers. So you can extract, obviously, there's a lot of price moves that you use in pricing to extract value. But a lot of times too, you're trying to figure out ways to reinvest those wins back into sales so that you can grow. Um, so yeah, it's I would say there's no like negative, definitely in our organization, no negative connotation of the work that we're doing. I think if anything, it's like you got to make money so that you can reinvest in the business, win more business, and grow.
So, what I'm hearing you say is that you help jobbers price products going out the Napa Auto Parts store, but do you also help Genuine Parts price the products going into the Napa Auto Parts store?
Yeah. So that was my first role in pricing, was more the consultative work for our independent owners. Now my role is basically I do kind of what you just vocalized. I set both the price that we sell into our stores and I set our recommended list prices that we sell out of the store. So I set a recommended retail price for nationwide. I set a recommended wholesale price for nationwide, and then I set a recommended list price, which is our resale price, into our independent owners. And each one of those, we have like discount structures built off of them. But I set basically that primary framework for our products. So we've got those 850,000 products. And so my team, that's not really me, it's my team. They're the ones partnering with category and trying to make sure that we're achieving our goals. But those are the three things that we're oriented around: those, a retail list price, a wholesale list price, and then a resale price into our independent owners.
Nice. So this is going to be a great cover. I just wish I knew what you knew, right? I could just imagine this. This is going to be fun. So how do you think about? Let's talk about price segmentation, but from a market segmentation perspective first, right? So how do you think of different market segments and charging different prices, or do you?
Yeah, I would say it comes and goes by geography. Let's talk like the obvious one first, which is typically like geographical based pricing, regional based pricing, like kind of that approach to pricing. So our industry has kind of ebbed and flowed over time. So we used to have more regional based pricing. Our competition hadn't quite organized to like a national perspective. So you were fighting all these regional competitors, so you had regional based pricing. And then over time, our competition has all kind of grown to a national footprint. And what happened at a similar time was all of a sudden you had nationwide pricing. So we've seen it kind of swing back and forth over the course of the last probably 20 years in pricing. Obviously, I've only been here for 12, but um, right now, a lot of our retail prices are set almost nationwide for, I would say, the continental United States, and that matches kind of the expectations of our competition. We do see that starting to shift a little bit. We analyze that to see, hey, do we see some shifts happening over time where regional based pricing is becoming more apparent? But we flexed in and out of that model twice in the 12 years I've been here. Um, so regional is like the first way that we would look at market segmentation in general. You think of the south to the northwest and kind of having some kind of gradient of pricing that's kind of aligned to, you could align it a bunch of different ways, right? You could
Yeah.
look at average income in markets. You could look at willingness to pay in different markets. You try to measure affluency and vehicle types in different markets. So like all of those things we've kind of flexed in and out of over time. I I don't know if that answers the question, Mark, but it's been evolving. Uh, of how you can look at how to price more across the United States. We do some things, more where we're focused more now isn't necessarily market segmentation as much as, and I guess this would lead to market segmentation, but focused on product segmentation, focused on customer segmentation. I guess you would take the cross of that to be a market. So that's kind of where we're at right now in our journey.
So what do you think of when you think of the words customer segmentation? What are you thinking? Are you thinking things like income, or is it something else?
Yeah, I'd say this is, and this isn't probably unique to us. It it's very highly dependent. When you said, the word attributable, this is my take on basically like customer segmentation. It's what attributes do you have to drive a pricing relationship. You've got I'd say organizations kind of go through a few different journeys. Um, you know stuff just by your sales master. Let's start there. So you have transactions for your customers. You can mine that and back into some attributes, basically like 10-year volume, uh, frequency. So you can do those kind of things just based off your sales master. So that's like step one where you would take segmentation on the customer level. Then that's not necessarily willingness to pay. And I'd say most organizations are trying to figure out what willingness to pay is, and willingness to pay is highly driven by what value your customers derive from your products and services. So you need you need to enrich your attribution to help drive that. So you look at your value drivers, you try to build an attribute that is related to either product or customer. But so for us, like in our market, it's not like price isn't the primary driver of the sale typically. I mean, not that it's not important, but we deal a lot with B2B business, and it's about how quickly you can deliver a part from a store to a garage. So, are you able to move that product within 15 minutes, 30 minutes from your store to that garage? Because typically they're trying to get a car turned around quickly. The car just broke. You got a customer on the other side. They need that product right away. So that's some of the, like, we're big on, do you have the product available? How quickly can you get it to the consumer? So you can start thinking of how would you use some of that to drive your customer attribution that you use for pricing work over time. I wouldn't say we're quite there yet in all regards, and we're doing some things kind of unique in that space. I won't get into kind of all strategy work, but you can understand the picture. You look at your sales, you can tell stuff about your customers. Then you start looking at the attribution you have for customers, and you can tie stuff to regions. You can tie stuff to zip codes, whatever it is, to try to make a decision of whether or not you see willingness to pay. And you can use all that to help drive price.
Okay. So stupid question, really specific. And feel free to say, Mark, I can't answer that. You have two car repair shops. One is a 10-minute drive away and one is a 20-minute drive away. Do they get two different prices?
I would say I can't really answer that, but I would say we would look at this is more how we look at customers. It's not drive time. We're not really like a cost to serve pricing org. Like you could do that. You could say, hey, my cost to serve a 20-minute away customer is more than my 10-minute away customer. We look at it this way, like we want to partner with our best customers, whether they're 20 minutes away or they're 10 minutes away. And we want to make sure that, we're taking care of them, and taking care of them isn't necessarily charging them more because they're 20 minutes away versus 10 minutes away. Like we want good customer relationship. We want to earn their basket of goods. So, we try to make sure the pricing helps convey that message regardless of distance. Yeah.
I got to tell you, Josh, I would have priced it the other way that you're thinking, right? It wasn't the cost to serve. It was, a 10-minute delivery is worth more than a 20-minute delivery. So therefore I'd charge the 10-minute guy more and the 20-minute guy less.
Exactly. You can take both sides to it, right? You're able to offer better service to the guy that's closer. But we look at it, I'd say, if the guy that's close to you is giving you $50 a month, but the guy that's further away is giving you $10,000 a month, now you've got a different decision than the one we just
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's always other circumstances.
Yes, it's always nuances, right? You can always argue both sides of any coin.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so tell me about product segmentation. And I don't think enough people talk or think about product segmentation. How do you think about that?
Yeah, so product segmentation can go a ton of different ways with attribution too. You think some things I would say is kind of driving logic through price, and how is product segmentation just meet logic. So I mean, not that everybody would think the same way, but you can think of it as like logically, you probably have lower margins on higher dollar products. $1,000 product probably has lower margins than a $1 product. So you could segment your products by price.
You mean margin percentage?
Margin percent. Yeah. Yeah. You're probably not making, 50, 75% margin on $1,000 product, but you might be making that on a $1 product, right? Just depends on what kind of business you're in. And certain businesses are, even way more extreme than that. But so you could segment your products that way. Other ways to like think of it is like you can do more of like product life cycle ideas of, is this a newly introduced product? Because typically things, if you just kind of think of marketing 101, typically things when they're newly introduced to the market drive a little bit of a premium versus when they hit that peak demand in their product life cycle where prices and margins typically kind of go down. Hopefully you're trying to maximize profits. And then eventually they reach kind of the end of their product life cycle. And that can trigger in a lot of organizations like clearance activity, right? So, you can think of it, products, segmenting your products over product life cycle. We've actually come up with close to like 50 different product attributes that we are, some of them we use, some we don't. We're just always trying to figure out like what's the right way to analyze the products to drive maximum profit in the organization. So I'd say there's just ton. And once you start thinking about it and you start like really dissecting your products, there's a lot of different ways that you could try to go about solving that problem.
How do you guys get product in the first place? Do you manufacture your own or are you getting it from suppliers?
Yeah, we're a supplier-based organization. Some of that stuff is direct source. Some of that we work through with, name brands. So, we have like some really long-standing relationships with organizations like Gates for belts and hose. So that, that's a that's not something that we directly source. We source it through them. Then other products will go directly to kind of the manufacturer, if you will, and bring that into our supply chain.
Okay, and now I hate asking this question, but how much do costs impact your pricing? So if a supplier raises their price by 10%, does that automatically flow through to your price?
I would say, I mean, we're always very conscious of managing that time. The industry in general, uh, it passes on most of cost to price at time of cost increase. So you can watch our competitors move just like they can watch us move through web scraping tools and stuff like that. Um, so I'd say the industry, in part, our products are year, make, model specific. A lot of them. So the elasticity of that is kind of interesting to even like conceptualize because the part has to break somewhere. So it's not like we don't sell a ton of nice to have products. We sell must have products. So there's just more willingness to, as an entire industry, to not overthink the decision. I would say, like, you had a price increase, you do your best to negate through good procurement activities, but once you've accepted, um, we have a certain strategy in place, which I won't get into, but we do our best job of making sure that those prices are realized through our multi-channel distribution.
Okay. So I want to point out that I rail against cost plus pricing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But there are times when you have to do cost plus pricing. But you can do it in a really modified version, which is I think probably what you guys are doing given the conversation that we're having, which is, hey, here's a set of product attributes, and because of the set of product attributes, these guys get, I'm just going to make up a number. I have no clue if it's even close. These products get 30% margin, and these other products over here with a different set of attributes get 25% margin. And so when costs change, of course, prices change because we're doing the margin calculations, we're not going out to a customer and saying, how much are you willing to pay for this specific part?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say let me talk a little higher level than maybe at the granular level of how product segmentation influences price. But a little bit more broadly, I'll just talk about like cost plusing and where it
Sure.
plays in our organization. So I look at it this way, and I'll take it back to the industry. The industry moved away from cost plus pricing on a large part of the assortment in the last 10 years. So I wouldn't say we're not the large, I'd say, the whoever's largest can kind of dictate a little bit of the work of the rest of the industry. We're amongst the top 3, 4, depending on how you look at what channel and exactly where our influence is. But the industry moved away in a large regard to cost plus pricing a while ago. So we still have cost plus pricing in certain parts of our assortment. Some of the stuff that is less actively managed, I would say. I think the things that you start more actively managed just by trying to balance other needs of the organization, you move away from cost plus pricing over time. So, and we still do that every day. Now, during a cost increase event, you might take some decisions of how much of that you just move margin neutral based on what your margin was before, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your margin before was cost plus.
Right. No, understood. And how many parts do you have?
About 850,000 cataloged SKUs.
Right. And so that's what drives me to think that this is some kind of cost plus pricing, right?
Yeah,
Because there's no way you'd be
there's
willing
tenant.
to pay.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I'd say there's both sides of the coin. Like there's definitely, I would say there's still heavy influence from cost plus pricing this industry was built on for 30 years, and now trying to move to market based and then value based pricing. So I think as you go through that, you just see kind of your model change a little bit, where not everything's cost plus. You're still fighting kind of the old cost plus pricing that you had, and it's slowly turning. So I would say that's what happens. It slowly shapes a little further away from cost plus pricing. There is certain things though, like because of our multi-channel distribution, like our independent owners aren't willing to sell product at 1% margins. They need to. We don't use a lot of. We're not a grocery store. We don't have a whole lot of loss leaders. We're not selling bananas below cost or something like that to get people in the door. People are in our door because something broke, and we either they are used to coming to us or we're the closest place or whatever it may be. So, we try to make well-balanced margin decisions on almost every transaction. There's not a ton of like loss leader kind of mentality or something like that in our industry.
Right. You can imagine the jobbers, the people that are running the stores, they've got a specific way that they want to make money, and you
Mhm.
teach them how to do it, but
Mhm.
they still have a specific margin they have to make.
Yep. Yeah. We're constantly reminded of their expectations of margin.
Do you guys run your own stores? Because you mentioned the
Yes.
independent, so you run your own?
Yeah. About 1/3 of our stores are company owned,
And
2/3 independent.
do
So you can think
you
of it like we own most of like the metropolitan areas are where we're heavily focused, and then kind of the less metropolitan areas are where you'll find our independent owners.
do you price all of your products at the Napa Auto Parts store at your list prices, at your recommended list prices?
No, there's a whole like at the B2B space, which is the majority of our business, there's a whole discount structure um off of our
Uh,
recommended wholesale price. So
I'm
there's
with
an
you.
entire discount structure. It depends on product line, but it might be 5, 10, 20% discounts. I know some people like orient their business around a global list and then have huge discounts from global list. We don't organize our pricing off of a global list. We have a recommended, more reasonable wholesale price and then discount from there. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely discounts in place in our business model.
Nice, nice. Talk to me a little bit about data analytics, if you would.
Yeah,
What's it like? How many analysts do you have, and how do you give them instructions? What do you ask them to do for you?
yeah. So we've got well, yeah, in pricing in general in our organization, I would say we have 1, 2, 4. We have like 4 analysts or senior analysts that are really data heavy. We have a data scientist, a lead, 2 leads that drive some larger decisions of how we use data to make decisions. So we probably have half a dozen or more people like full time dedicated to really trying to figure out with data and analytics and how to drive us into a more modern future. I'd say this is how I look at it. We've got it, analytics teams that are really trying to understand what we're doing here and now, and did the previous decision make sense? Like, did it hit our KPI targets? So monitoring performance, I would say, is a large part of our analytics. Um, and then we have a lot of, ways that we want to keep on progressing and modernizing in our approach. And so we've got teams organized around that too of, hey, let's keep an eye on the future. Let's figure out what the most recent data science approaches to some of the topics that we've already discussed, whether it was customer product segmentation and willingness to pay, and how does organizations try to extract more value over time. I've been to a lot of different conferences, and I liked one. I can't remember, so whoever said this, just ping me later and let me know it was you. But uh, there was an individual that was basically like, your goal is always to leave value on the table for the customer so that you have that repeat business. You're never trying to extract 100% of value of any single transaction, because you might actually start losing customer retention over time. You want to leave 10-20% on the table. So I've always kind of kept that in the back of my mind as we do certain activities of how do we keep the fairness in play as we make pricing actions. But from an analytical standpoint, it's definitely, we've got an eye on today and an eye on the future is how I view analytics and its place in our business.
And so it sounds like you rely on the data scientists to say, here's what the future looks like, or see if you can go figure out what the future looks like.
It is more organized that way. Trying to do different predictive models, and then try to bring some of those to light and run tests. Like that's kind of how we have it structured.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
Rob, I find this fascinating. I thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it. But let's get to the last question.
Yep.
And what is one piece of pricing advice you would give our listeners that you think could have a big impact on their business?
Yeah, I think most people that have been pricing for a while understand that you've got more pricing power than you think you do. I think that's what it comes down to, especially if you're a part, I guess, as part of a large established corporation. If you're a small business and you're trying to grow quickly, you probably don't have as much pricing power as you wish you did. But once you run, we're 100 years in business this year as an organization. So, a lot of organizations have a long track record. They have very established customers doing most of their most of their business through. You've got more pricing power than you might realize.
I actually love that comment. And if I were to flip it around, I would say something like we overestimate the power of pricing, or we overestimate how much customers consider price when they make a decision.
Mark, I'm 100% aligned to that. Like, there's more value in the transfer of your products or services to your customer than price alone.
Yep.
You're not breaking out the customer value proposition very well if all you see on one side is price and the other side is the customer, right? Like you're doing it wrong.
Yep. Awesome. Josh, thank you so much for your time today. If anybody wants to contact you, how can they do that?
Just on LinkedIn. Just Joshua Lowe on LinkedIn.
Okay. Excellent. We'll put a link to your URL in the show notes. And to our listeners, thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this, would you please leave us a rating and a review? And if you have any questions or comments about the podcast, or if your company needs help getting paid more for the value you deliver, feel free to email me, mark@impactpricing.com. Now, go make an impact. Thanks again to Jennings Executive Search for sponsoring our podcast. If you're looking to hire someone in pricing, I suggest you contact someone who knows pricing people. Contact Jennings Executive Search.